What's shaking, everybody? Welcome to another edition of K&A on the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. Do us a solid, like the video, subscribe to the channel, smash that notifications button. Anwar Richardson and myself are talking about Kelvin Banks today, that freshman sensation, Anwar, that has been so good through 3 games that Steve Sarkisian mentioned yesterday. You guys don't even want to talk about him anymore. Well, here we are. We're talking about him, Sark.
I mean, Ketch, it's so interesting because before the season and kind of when these guys signed this great offensive line class, but definitely before the season, off season, we started talking about, hey, Texas would need probably 2 of these guys to have an impact this year. I think we were kind of eyeing at that time Kelvin Banks and maybe DJ Campbell as being those 2 guys that would probably start on the offensive line. So Kelvin Banks kind of ends up living up to the expectations. Cole Hudson ends up being a guy that's getting get some run with Campbell still there, still working and progressing and still getting better each day. And Banks, Ketch, comes as advertised. I mean, for playing that position, it's funny because he mentioned that, and it was interesting because as I was driving in from the lovely Cedar Park into the downtown Austin, I was thinking on that Monday, like, we haven't mentioned Kelvin Banks in a long time, and that probably is a really good thing. And has he met your expectations, or has he exceeded your expectations? I expected him to start. I don't know if I expected him to be this good. That's not a knock. He just seems, for me, for whatever I thought he was, he's better than what I thought.
Yeah, no, he's wildly exceeded my expectations because I think, and I've thought a little bit about this, trying to run my head through the various candidates. Because look, we were around when Connor Williams was a freshman, and he was really good as a true freshman. A little bit like Kelvin Banks, where he just kind of showed up and filled a need immediately that otherwise would have been a major problem area. Sam Cosmi, red shirts, but he plays as a freshman. All the way back to Leonard Davis, some of the best offensive linemen ever, right, that Texas has had. Mike Williams, guys that were top 5 NFL draft picks. Kelvin Banks is the best freshman offensive lineman through 3 games, I think, in the history of the program. Wow. I literally cannot point to anybody in the last 40 years that really even comes close. And the scary thing is that Banks still has a lot of room for growth, that this is the beginning of his journey. But I thought he would be a guy that would have some bumps and bruises, and that, that would just kind of be the way that you live as an offensive lineman. You're going to give up some sacks as a young player. You're going to go up against good players like Will Anderson, who can expose you a time or two. Banks hasn't really been exposed once this season, other than he kind of gave up half a sack in the opener, but that wasn't all his fault. But you think about the Alabama game, Will Anderson got nothing off of him. You think about the UTSA game this weekend, no penalty. And that's the other thing. He's not even making pre-snap mistakes. He's playing pretty flawless football. And it's not a matter of, is he good? It's a matter of how good he is. And it's an exciting thing, I think, if you're a Texas football fan, because since you've been here almost a decade at Orange Bloods, it hasn't been a program where you point to a guy and say, that's what a first-round offensive lineman looks like. They've had a few good players. I think when I look at Kelvin Banks, we're looking at a guy, if he's a 3-year starter and he gets better from here, I think we're talking about a guy that's a top 10, top 15 type of NFL first-round draft pick. And then it kind of comes down to what year, what it looks like in your draft class. How many linemen are there? And that oftentimes decides how high you go in a draft. But I think the future is incredibly bright for Kelvin Banks. And I thought that before he played a game. I think it's even brighter now. This guy really has surpassed anything that anybody could have hoped for.
Yeah, this goes back to Catch, when you start looking about your 5-star rankings and what 5 stars is supposed to look like. And this brings credence. Kelvin Banks is that thing as far as all your stats and analysis that shows like a 5-star, what they're supposed to come in and do and look like. That's it. Like you talk about the difference between the developmental guys at offensive line that you say, okay, he's a high 3-star, low 4-star, whatever that may be. Now you've got to wait a couple of years to see for what he does in development. And then there's a 5-star who comes in and you go, oh, there's the difference. Like that's what it's supposed to look like. Oh, I get it now. And now, Catch, as a person who's been here, we used to nearly a decade, which and when I've looked at all the offensive linemen that have been here, it's always been question marks for the majority of them. Again, there's been a couple of guys that have been drafted, a couple have been able to make it to the NFL as an undrafted, free agent. But there hasn't been a freshman that you've really seen that have come in. And again, Connor Williams came in, played well. Patrick Vahe played well. Shackelford. I'm not saying those guys weren't productive. When we're talking about essentially using the word dominating, because that's essentially what's happening at this point, is dominating. It's not to say that, like you said, he doesn't have little mistakes here and there, but because that's to be expected. I thought the Alabama game, Catch, to your point of Will Anderson, I thought, okay, that'll be the learning lesson for the young man. Like, he's going against Bama. You're going to expect, to your point, a couple offsides. He's going to get beat on the end. You hope like hell the quarterback stays upright. And then you learn from that. You go into the film room and you get better and continue with your progression. And it was opposite of that, Catch. It wasn't even like that. It was more about, oh, this is what you did well. Here's a couple of little mistakes, and let's continue to build on that. He's definitely, for me, Catch, the best offensive lineman that I've seen from a freshman standpoint since I've been here. And, that when I start thinking about that class, and if this is the glimpse and just the start of what the entire class looks like, holy crap. But just looking at Banks and what he's been able to do, and even with guys being injured, even with Quinn going down, Catch, and how to try to protect for Hudson, he's been doing such a phenomenal job. I don't know who gets all the credit. I don't know if Flood gets the credit. I don't know if Banks gets the credit. I'm guessing Banks has come in kind of ready-made, but absolutely, he's been a stud.
Think about all that data that I throw out about 5-star players, and it's like, oh, well, 60 or 70% of players end up being drafted in the NFL. And a lot of people look at that and they hate that the NFL draft is like a marker, that's the criteria that I use. The thing that, if you go inside of that data, though, that we've never really spent a lot of time on, because quite frankly, Texas hasn't given us a ton of reasons to. When you get those 5-star guys, not only are they 50, 60% NFL players, sometimes at a minimum, they're 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 times, depending on depending on whether we're talking about 4 stars, 3 stars, or 2 stars, they're exponentially higher at going in the first round. Mm-hmm. So it's not just that these guys they get drafted. 5 stars get drafted in the first round at massively higher rates than the other stars. So when you're Texas and you get Kelvin Banks, the last couple of 5-star offensive linemen that Texas has had haven't really panned out. So now, if you go back far enough, you look at a Leonard Davis and you're like, oh, okay, when that 5-star guy hits, that's what it looks like. You have this physical freak. It's been 20 years since the Longhorns signed a 5-star offensive lineman that's gone boom. And I'm always talking about why it's important to get prospects of this type, because of their upside. Texas was so due to hit an offensive line prospect that's supposed to be great, and for that lineman to come out of the gates. I think you could make a case that Kelvin Banks is having a first-team All Big 12 type of season so far. mean, I don't know who else in the Big 12 I would even throw into that category, but my eyeballs tell me that Kelvin Banks is the best offensive lineman on the Texas offensive line, on an offensive line that's been pretty good so far this season, and on an offense that's, I think when it's all said and done, will prove to be one of the better offenses in the Big 12. They're clearly dealing with quarterback issues right now, but he is just shot past he's gone from the notion of, well, we'll just blood him in and we'll live with the consequences, the ups and the downs. He skipped go on the Monopoly board and just like gone straight to like, what is it, community chest or maybe even Boardwalk or Park Place. Like, he is in a place where from here it only gets better. And it's been so long since Texas has had a truly dominant offensive lineman that I think everybody's a little slow to fully realize what we're watching here. Because I think some people might hear us talk today and think that we're talking in hyperbolic terms. And I don't think we are at all. Like, this is what it looks like when you get that guy and he proves to be that guy. And for me, Kelvin Banks is kind of like the Adrian Peterson of offensive linemen. He looks like a freak, and right now he's playing like a freak. And this is why the coaches spend all of that time never giving up, always fighting tooth and nail until because those types of prospects are that important.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that Ketch. I mean, it's interesting when you look at his, how it kind of falls in line. This guy that's going to go to Oregon, and it seems like, oh man. But to your point, they're still recruiting him, still staying after him. And then the clouds open up. The heavens open up, and Cristobal decides to go to Miami. I think Banks kind of entertained it for a little bit, but then said, okay, I'm just going to go to Texas. And, it doesn't matter. A win's a win, right? A recruiting win is a recruiting win. It don't matter how it happened. It just how it goes. And that's just for the footnotes of history. And he comes in here, Ketch, and has an instant impact. It ends up being a guy like to everything you're talking about. When we start thinking about, we're talking about the now, but then the future. He looks in trends to be a guy that you still tell yourself, okay, you've got that upside. You've got that up. You can see it. You can see it. Like, there's certain guys you just know. Like, there's certain guys you don't have to say, well, let me see this over the next couple of years. Certain guys, they show it to you, and you go, okay. It didn't take but a few touches from Bijan Robinson for you to know, okay, that looked different.
Yeah,
that looked
exactly.
special. And that's a different level. Like, it didn't take but a few catches from Xavier Worthy for you to tell yourself, oh, okay, that speed, that's different. Okay, I can see, where it's at. You can see to a certain degree we're starting to see with Jatavian Sanders. We've had some tight ends here over the years, and now all of a sudden you're saying, oh, wait a second, I haven't seen something like that since Jermichael Finkley. Like, it's been a while since that, and this is where I'm with Banks. I'm starting to see things with him, and I'm like, oh, this is what a dominant left tackle looks like at the University of Texas. Hadn't really seen that before. I've seen good ones.
You don't even see it in the NFL that much. Like, we're really talking about potentially a pretty rare guy. Because, again, I have seen top 5 NFL offensive linemen come from this school. And I've seen those guys, one of them anyway, and Leonard Davis, seen that guy be a Pro Bowler and earn a huge second contract and have a lot of success. And at this point, Kelvin Banks is better than those guys were when they were at the same age. That doesn't mean that it'll all even out, but it could. I mean, what we may be – and it's fascinating to me that Kelvin Banks in the All-Star games last year, I know that he moved to right tackle as opposed to left tackle. And a lot of people think that just because he moved to right tackle, that helps explains some of the struggles that he had at the All-Star game last year. But it wasn't just that. Like, just in generic one-on-one drills last year at that All-Star game 10 months ago, he struggled against elite level high school talent. And that in the last 10 months, he's progressed to the point where I've not yet seen him really tested. It's mind-blowing. I mean, that's where I got to give Flood some level, because he didn't look like an add water instant phenomenon in December of 2021. And that here we are in the middle of September, late September, just 9+ months later, and that he's performing at a level that has me saying, I think he's got a chance to be a top 15 first-round draft pick. He's the best freshman offensive lineman that I think I've ever seen at Texas as a true freshman. That whether we're talking about first-team all Big 12 or we're talking about Big 12 newcomer of the year, especially with like freshman or newcomer of the year, those are typically reserved for skill players. I think Kelvin Banks is going to have to be a serious candidate for that position, because I think by the end of the year, if he keeps this up, we'll ask ourselves, was there any other freshman who was as good at their position as he was at left tackle? And at this point, I don't see that player. I don't see it at quarterback. I don't see it at running back. I have not yet seen that player in the Big 12 as a freshman who's doing more than what Kelvin Banks is doing. And I just want to get this on the record in September, because in December, that kid might need to be winning some awards.
Yeah, I mean, there might be some all Big 12 team that he's on at the end of the year, and then whatever else, past that. And look, the more team success that they have, the easier it is for him to get all those awards, Ketch, and a lot more recognition. Again, a guy that, Ketch, he didn't have to. Sarkisian didn't have to mention Banks by name. He could have just said, the collective whole, but he singled him out. And by singling him out, when a coach singles out a freshman to say, hey, this guy is playing well, that guy's probably on another level, right? He's probably is exceeded their expectations where they're throwing a freshman out there, because when you start thinking about the names that he throws out there, it's the Roshans of the world, it's Bijans of the world, it's Quins of the world, it's the Marvion, it's the leaders of the team. And then for him to throw out that guy, it says a lot. It's interesting. You brought up Flood getting some credit, and I think back is when you said it made me think back to last year when Topi Amade started playing extremely well, and it's towards the end of the season, and Tope started saying, like, man, I wish I had a guy like Kyle Flood. And look, and Alex was doing good grades for him. And Alex was saying Tope was grading out really well,
Give Topi Amade some damn respect kind of level stuff.
Yes, and Tope got to speak to us one time before he had to go off into the sunset, but it shows that from a Kyle Flood perspective, this ain't a one-trick pony. Like, this ain't a guy that can only coach the elite of the elite, the 5 stars. He can do that, and he can also coach a guy who was overlooked as a super senior, who basically finally gets in and coach that guy up too. So it says a lot for Flood and where he's at from a development standpoint. Whatever they're paying him, probably not paying him enough. But then, the work, the combo him with a guy like Banks, and we see the instant results. Like I said, it gives you, happiness, I think, if you're a Texas fan or for what you're seeing now. And I think optimism for the future when you start thinking about all the other guys who were signed in this class outside of Cole Hudson that, are going to be waiting for their turn and then probably have an opportunity to go within the next couple of years.
Yeah, they can't pay Kyle Flood enough money. That's a guy that, if you're Texas, whatever it takes to keep that guy around forever.
Yes.
Like if Steve Sarkisian took a job in the NFL, I'm just hypothesizing like what could happen. Texas has so much success that Steve Sarkisian gets an NFL job, and like, if you're Texas, all right, but you can't take Kyle Flood. Kyle Flood stays here. And if we have to pay him $3 million a year as an assistant coach, well, we're going to the SEC, and there will be a lot of money made. And, 5 stars, this is off point a little bit. How much is it's not though. How much is Kelvin Banks worth to because that story came out this weekend about the money Texas spent. I think it was in The Athletic on the Arch Manning visit. They spent as a whole for everybody included, it was like $750,000 or something along those lines. But Arch Manning is worth so much more than $250,000 that I kind of scoff at the notion that that's even a lot of money. They're winning on that deal. How much is Kelvin Banks's value to a college football program? In the millions. What is a 5-star start every game of your career, future first-round draft pick left tackle worth to a college football program?
I mean, if you're asking this guy to protect Quinn for 2 years and Arch the following year after that, right? So this year, next, 2 Quinn, Arch potentially the following year after that, maybe Malik Murphy if he's in the mix, but whoever that starting quarterback is going to be, whether it's Arch or Malik. 3 years of protecting someone's blind side. I mean, it's 7 figures. I don't know how high in the 7 figures you go.
I think he's worth $10 million.
I won't argue against it.
I think we're talking about the first $10 million player in the scope of UT football, probably since Colt McCoy. And I think Quinn Ewers is worth that amount of money as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that B. John's quite worth $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you know what I mean? There are other legit super talents. Xavier Worthy isn't worth as much as Kelvin Banks. Now, you and I think the world of Xavier Worthy, and he ain't far away because he's as an entity, he's worth millions. But quarterbacks, left tackles, and imagine a pass rusher as good as Kelvin Banks is as a freshman, how much that guy's worth.
Now, when you say 10 million, are you saying 10 million over the 3 years, or are you saying 10 million a year? Okay,
10 million over the 3 years.
Gotcha. Okay, so 3 points.
There are talk that some players in college football are earning a couple of million, 2.5, whatever. There are guys making 7 figures per year in NIL. I think in a 3-year package where it saves you the sweat and drama of trying to find someone else that has to play there. It's locked down for 3 years. And that guy is phenomenal. I think we're talking about a $10 million player. And I think the other guy in the program that I would describe like that is Quinn Ewers. And I don't know that there's another player that I would quite value so highly. Again, quarterbacks, left tackles, pass rushers. Those guys live on a different stratosphere when they're phenomenal than everybody else. And if you're Texas, the thing that you have to feel best about is there's a very good chance they're still looking for their pass rusher. And maybe they won't find that guy soon. But they've got the left tackle and quarterback at the same time. Yeah. These guys are going to be able to play together. And that is Colt McCoy didn't have that. And consequently, in the biggest game of his life, somebody couldn't make a block. He got hurt, cost Texas a national championship. That's Kelvin Banks protecting Quinn Ewers' backside. And then Arch Manning in Arch Manning's first season, holding down his blind side in his first year, potentially as a starter, 10 million over 3 years. And by the end of that, we may look at the way the college football values have taken off. And we may say in 3 years, he ended up being worth more than that.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see that, Ketch. I mean, it's You're saying what 3.3, a year. I mean, sure. I mean, why not? And by the way, if he's got some what's they don't use the term agent, right? But there's whatever
Representation.
If he's got any representation, and they're probably watching this video, first a couple of things. The representation's got to be thinking to themselves, okay, this is a good sign. But if they don't get that money, like the Banks family is going to watch it and be like, hey, where the
Catch and Anwar.
Why are we out here at Pluckers? Why is he signing autographs? Like, hey man, you guys need that might be our business. That might be our retirement business. Catch is it might be forming the K and A representation.
Where we just declare values. Because look,
and then we tell people what they're worth, and then it's up to the agents to go out and get them.
Banks's representation will have part of this video on the sizzle reel.
Indeed,
right? Because they'll be like, before they go in to talk to Lamborghini, they're going to play the sizzle reel of Kelvin Banks, and it's going to have you and I on camera, and it's going to be me saying, he's worth $10 million. And they're going to be, oh, that's the best thing. Think about how good it would feel if someone said that about you, Anwar.
Oh, wow.
Think about how that would feel. Anwar Richardson's worth $10 million.
It would feel amazing. I don't know how if it moved the needle with you, but it would definitely make me feel amazing.
I'd be the best. I just can't imagine anybody saying that guy is so good. He's worth, an extra digit in the millions. He's not a 7-figure guy. He's an 8-figure guy. That just give me the warm and fuzzy.
Whatever Pancake Factory is paying him, like that's cool for everyone else. But Banks should definitely have like his own other sets of deals. That I don't know if he can fit in a Lambo. Like he's a pretty big guy, but whatever he could fit in and whatever they're willing to give him from a car standpoint,
he's definitely getting hooked up at Covert Hutto.
Oh, he definitely does. He does. You know what these guys do? The sidebar. You know what they also need, Catch? Not only do they need these car deals, I need some guys signing deals with like home builders. By the way, I need like I need a KB home sponsorship. You know what I'm saying? Like I want guys getting their home builders thing. I'm like, I got a new house thanks to such and such. Like the cars are cool, but I need some guys to come up on some houses too. Like that's going to be a part of the. If I ever form a representation group, every guy's got to get a house. That's what I'm going to say.
That'd be badass. I was thinking that Banks needs a security NIL deal.
Ooh.
So some security company has got to be like Kelvin Banks. We offer the best protection, and his hookup ain't that he gets free alarm service in his house.
Nah.
It's a truckload of money.
Yes. His hookup is, you know what the alarm is? The notifications when that direct deposit hits. That's his alarm. There should be nothing else other than that.
All right. Look, if Anwar and I completely lost our minds, feel free to tell us in the comments section, how much would you value of all the things that we've said? Best offensive lineman as a freshman, potentially in school history, future first-round draft pick, his value in dollars to this program. Put all of it in the comments. Let us know what you think. If we said anything that was mildly informative or amusing, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, get notifications. I'll be doing a live show later tonight. We're recording this on a Tuesday night. I'll have OB at night. Tomorrow night on Wednesday, Anwar's got the Drunk Uncle. We got the podcast on Thursday. The content never stops flowing here on the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. For myself and Anwar Richardson and Blake, the producer, you guys have a great rest of the day. We'll see you later on. Peace.